Caffeine. This is the planet's psychoactive lubricant, the most widely consumed drug on Earth. We don't even call it a drug, we call it a drink. But make no mistake, it is a precision-engineered stimulant. Caffeine works by pulling off a perfect act of molecular espionage. Your brain builds up a chemical called adenosine all day. Think of adenosine as the brain's sleepy dust, or its brake pedal. The more you have, the more your brain wants to slow down and sleep. Caffeine's molecular structure looks almost identical to adenosine. It's an imposter. When you drink coffee, caffeine races to your brain and slides into all the adenosine receptors like a key fitting in a lock. But here's the trick. It fits, but it doesn't turn the key. It just camps out, blocking the real adenosine from landing. The brake pedal is now covered. Your brain, unaware of the deception, can't feel its own fatigue. This blockade triggers a cascade. With the brakes off, other systems go into overdrive. Dopamine, pleasure, and glutamate, alertness signaling, increase. The pituitary gland sees this sudden activity, mistakes it for an emergency, and releases adrenaline. This is the fight or flight hormone. Your heart rate quickens, pupils dilate, and muscles tense. You're not gaining energy, you're borrowing it, running your body's emergency systems on a Tuesday morning just to answer emails. The curious part, caffeine is actually a plant's chemical weapon. It's a neurotoxic insecticide that paralyzes and kills bugs that try to eat the coffee bean. We're just large enough to find the effect stimulating. That jittery feeling is a mild overdose. The crash is the adenosine, which has been building up this whole time, flooding back into the receptors the second the caffeine wears off, hitting you with all your accumulated tiredness at once. Nicotine. Nicotine is the silver bullet of stimulants, a drug that delivers its payload with terrifying efficiency. When inhaled, it vaporizes, hits the massive surface area of the lungs, and floods the bloodstream, reaching the brain in under 7 seconds. That's twice as fast as an intravenous injection. This speed is the key to its addiction. Its mechanism is, again, impersonation. Nicotine mimics a primary neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, the master key of the nervous system. Acetylcholine is crucial for everything: muscle movement, memory, learning, and alertness. Nicotine slides into its receptors, the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, and slams the accelerator. This is the stimulant part. It dumps adrenaline, giving you that sharp, focused kick. Your heart rate climbs, and your blood pressure rises. But here's the paradox. Users report it calms them down. This isn't an illusion. By activating these master key receptors, nicotine also modulates other systems, including a massive release of dopamine in the brain's reward center. This dopamine hit provides a feeling of calm, satisfaction, and focus, temporarily silencing the noise of the world. It's a stimulant that feels like a relaxant. The trap is that the brain quickly adapts. It sees this constant, artificial flood and desensitizes its own receptors, basically turning down their volume. It also reduces its own natural acetylcholine and dopamine production. Within weeks, your brain's normal state becomes one of deficiency. You're not smoking to feel good, you're smoking to stop feeling awful. The craving you feel isn't a desire for a cigarette. It's the physical, neurological demand of your hijacked brain screaming for the one chemical it now needs just to feel baseline normal. Alcohol. Alcohol, or ethanol, is perhaps the most deceptive drug. We call it a social lubricant or a depressant, but it's more accurately a chemical bulldozer. It's one of the few substances small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier with ease, and it doesn't bother with a single, elegant mechanism. It just barges in and messes with everything. Its main magic trick is a two-part act. First, it targets GABA, the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. GABA is the shh signal, the brake pedal that keeps your brain from becoming an overexcited, anxious mess. Alcohol binds to GABA receptors and makes them hyper-effective. It's like pressing the brake pedal and having it go straight to the floor. This is the onset. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for judgment, planning, and social inhibitors, is the first to be shh. Your anxieties fade, you become more talkative, more confident. This isn't a new personality. It's just your brain's supervisor being put to sleep. Simultaneously, alcohol performs its second act. It blocks glutamate, the brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitter. Glutamate is the go signal. By blocking it, alcohol slows down your thoughts, slurs your speech, and ruins your coordination. You are literally turning down the processing speed of your entire brain. That warm feeling? It's vasodilation. Alcohol opens up your blood vessels, rushing warm blood to the surface of your skin. This is an illusion. You are actually losing core body heat, which is why drunks can die of hypothermia. The hangover is the brutal rebound. Your brain, having been artificially suppressed, overcompensates, creating a glutamate surge, anxiety, light and sound sensitivity, and a GABA deficiency, the hangover anxiety or hangxiety. Cannabis. Cannabis is unique. It doesn't hijack existing systems like caffeine or alcohol. It targets a system we didn't even know we had until the 1990s, the endocannabinoid system. The ECS is the brain's master regulator, its dimmer switch. It's not responsible for starting signals, but for calming them down. It's the chill network that tells other neurons to stop firing so intensely. Your body naturally produces its own cannabinoids, the most famous being anandamide, named after the Sanskrit word for bliss. You produce this bliss molecule after exercise or during meditation. It helps you forget, relax, and eat. THC, the primary psychoactive compound in cannabis, is an imposter for anandamide. It binds to the same CB1 receptors in the brain, but it's a clumsy, powerful foreigner. While anandamide is a delicate signal that your body creates and quickly cleans up, THC floods the system and sticks around for hours. It slams down the dimmer switch, making it far more potent than your body's natural chill signal. This is why its effects are so varied. When it hits the CB1 receptors in your hippocampus, your short-term memory encoding falters. Like, what was I saying? In the hypothalamus, it triggers the munchies. In the amygdala, it can either dim anxiety or, for some, cause paranoia by disrupting normal emotional processing. The slowing of time, the funniness of things, the depth of music, this is all your brain's master regulator being hijacked, causing sensory information to be processed in a distorted, undimmed, and unusual way. Cocaine. Cocaine is a stimulant of pure brute force. Its entire effect is built on hijacking a single critical component of your brain's reward system, the dopamine transporter, or DAT. Here's how your brain normally works. One neuron releases dopamine into a synapse, a small gap, to send a pleasure or motivation signal to the next neuron. To turn the signal off, the first neuron uses a reuptake pump, the DAT, to suck the dopamine back up. It's a natural vacuum cleaner that keeps the system balanced. Cocaine works by jamming that vacuum cleaner. It races into the synapse and plugs the DAT. The signal-sending neuron keeps releasing dopamine, but the off switch is broken. The synapse floods with its own dopamine, which continuously re-stimulates the receiving neuron. This isn't an artificial high. It's your own brain's player system forced into a screaming, non-stop feedback loop. The onset is a tidal wave of euphoria, confidence, and energy. You feel powerful, brilliant, invincible. This is the feeling of your brain's core reward and motivation circuit being redlined. Your body's sympathetic nervous system kicks in, dumping adrenaline. Your heart pounds, pupils dilate, blood vessels constrict. The come down is just as mechanical. The brain, overwhelmed by this flood, initiates an emergency shutdown. It pulls its dopamine receptors inland, away from the synapse, making them harder to activate. This is called downregulation. When the cocaine finally wears off, you're left with a depleted supply of dopamine and fewer receptors to catch what's left. The result is a profound crash of depression, anxiety, and lethargy. The brilliant, euphoric world turns gray and empty, and the only thing your brain can think of to fix it is the one substance that broke it. MDMA. MDMA, or Molly, is often mislabeled as a psychedelic or a stimulant. It's in its own class, an empathetic entactogen, a chemical that generates feelings of empathy and touching within. Its mechanism is one of the most bizarre and forceful of any drug. Like cocaine, it targets the brain's transporter or vacuum cleaner system. But it doesn't just target dopamine, it primarily targets serotonin. Serotonin is the mood, memory, and connection molecule, and MDMA doesn't just block the serotonin transporter, SERT, it reverses it. Imagine the SERT is a revolving door designed to bring serotonin in from the synapse. MDMA enters the neuron, flips a chemical switch, and forces the revolving door to spin outwards, dumping the neuron's entire internal supply of serotonin into the synapse. This is a chemical bomb. It's not a flood, it's a purge. Simultaneously, it does the same to dopamine and norepinephrine, adrenaline, creating a three-part cocktail of overwhelming bliss, serotonin, energy, dopamine, and stimulation, norepinephrine. The onset is the come-up, often with anxiety as the adrenaline hits first. Then the serotonin wave breaks. The world is perfect. Touch feels electric. Music is three-dimensional. You feel a profound, non-sexual, unconditional love for everyone and everything. This is the empathy effect, driven by the serotonin bomb and a secondary release of oxytocin, the cuddle or trust hormone. The come down is legendary and brutal. You have just emptied your brain's entire supply of serotonin. It takes weeks to rebuild that. The days following, the Suicide Tuesday, are often marked by depression, emotional flatness, and brain zaps. Your brain's mood-regulating system is not just depleted, it's in recovery from chemical trauma. LSD. Lysergic acid diethylamide is the king of classic psychedelics, a substance so potent its doses are measured in micrograms, millionths of a gram. It is a chemical sledgehammer to the very foundation of your reality. Its mechanism is, fittingly, complex. The primary target is the serotonin 2A, 5-HT2A, receptor. LSD binds to this receptor in a unique way. It gets in, and then the receptor folds over it, trapping the LSD molecule inside. This is why the trip lasts 8 to 12 hours. The molecule is physically stuck, continuously stimulating the receptor. But what does this do? These 5-HT2A receptors are most dense in the brain's default mode network, DMN. The DMN is, in simple terms, you. It's your ego, your sense of self, your inner monologue, the part of your brain that ruminates about the past and worries about the future. LSD shuts it down. By overstimulating these receptors, it causes the DMN to disintegrate. Your ego dissolves. This is ego death. Without this central filter, your brain's processing goes haywire. Regions that normally don't talk to each other, like the visual cortex and the auditory cortex, suddenly connect. This is synesthesia. You hear colors and see sounds. Your sense of self versus other blurs. You may feel one with the universe because the neurological boundary defining you has been chemically erased. The trip is not a hallucination in the sense of seeing things that aren't there. It's a perception shift. You are seeing the raw, unfiltered data of your senses processed through a brain that has temporarily lost its central operating system.
Ketamine. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic. This is a polite way of saying it's a reality anesthetic. It doesn't just numb your body, it numbs your mind's connection to your body. Its mechanism is completely different from other psychedelics. Ketamine is an NMDA receptor antagonist. This is critical. The NMDA receptor is a gateway for glutamate, the brain's main excitatory go signal. This is the chemical that makes your brain work, process information, and form thoughts. Ketamine flies in and blocks that gateway. It is a chemical information blockade. It's like cutting the fiber optic cable to your brain. Sensory input, sight, sound, touch, still arrives at your brain, but it can't be processed properly. Your thoughts can't connect, your brain's link to your body is severed. This is dissociation. At low doses, this feels floaty, dreamy, or drunk. At high doses, you enter the K-hole. This is a state of near-total sensory deprivation. Your mind is unmoored from reality, floating in an internal void, as you can no longer feel your body or process the outside world. This is why it's a battlefield anesthetic. You can be fully conscious during surgery, but have no memory or experience of the pain, because the experiencing part of your brain has been unplugged. Its newfound use as an antidepressant is fascinating. This reboot, this temporary shutdown of the brain's main go signal, is thought to disrupt the rigid negative thought loops of depression, allowing the brain to rapidly form new, healthier connections in its absence.
Opioids. Opioids, heroin, morphine, fentanyl, oxycodone, are the ultimate off switch for pain. They work by mimicking your body's own natural painkillers, called endorphins, short for endogenous morphine. Your brain has a sophisticated system for regulating pain, built around opioid receptors. When you're injured, your brain releases endorphins to land on these receptors, dulling the pain signal so you can function. Opioids are a molecular sledgehammer that does the same job, but 1,000 times more powerfully. They bind to these same mu-opioid receptors and don't just dull the pain signal, they obliterate it. This action also triggers a massive, warm, euphoric flood of dopamine. It is a 2-for-1, total absence of physical pain and a rush of profound, blissful pleasure. This is what makes them so dangerous. These receptors don't just exist in your brain's pain and pleasure centers. They are densely packed in your brainstem, the primitive lizard brain that controls your most basic, automatic survival functions. When opioids bind to the receptors in the brainstem, they begin to shut down its go signals. The most critical one they suppress is the respiratory drive. This is how an overdose kills. The user feels a warm, euphoric bliss as their pain and anxiety melt away, but as the dose overwhelms the brainstem, their body simply forgets to breathe. They don't gasp, they just stop. The high is so powerful that it convinces the most ancient part of your brain that survival is no longer necessary. Methamphetamine. If cocaine is a brute force stimulant, methamphetamine is a tactical nuke. It's in the same family as regular amphetamine, Adderall, but a small chemical modification, a methyl group, makes it far more lipid-soluble, meaning it rockets into the brain faster and more completely, making it exponentially more powerful and more toxic. It targets the same dopamine and norepinephrine systems as cocaine, but its mechanism is a work of pure chemical evil. It attacks in 3 waves. Block the vacuum. Like cocaine, it blocks the dopamine and norepinephrine reuptake transporters, DAT and NET, letting the chemicals flood the synapse. Reverse the vacuum. Like MDMA, it gets inside the neuron and reverses the transporters, forcing them to pump out even more dopamine. Purge the stockpile. This is the kill shot. Meth invades the vesicles, the tiny protected bubbles inside the neuron where dopamine is stored, and forces them to dump their entire stockpile into the cell, which is then pumped out into the synapse. The result is a dopamine tsunami that is orders of magnitude larger than any other drug. The high is a 12-hour state of superhuman energy, focus, and euphoria. But the cost is catastrophic. This process is neurotoxic. It physically burns out the nerve endings. The sheer oxidative stress and metabolic burnout caused by the drug destroys the very terminals that are supposed to release dopamine. This isn't just downregulation, it's demolition. The brain isn't just depleted, it's damaged, in some cases, permanently. Psilocybin. Psilocybin is the active compound in magic mushrooms. When you eat it, your stomach converts it into psilocin, which is the actual drug that affects your brain. Like LSD, it's a classic psychedelic that primarily targets the serotonin 2A receptor. However, its feel is often described as fundamentally different from LSD. While LSD can feel electric, sharp, and analytical, psilocybin is often reported as more organic, dreamlike, and emotional. Part of this is the duration of 4 to 6 hour trip versus LSD's 8 to 12. But it also binds to the receptors in a different, less sticky way. Like LSD, its main event is the disintegration of the default mode network, or the ego. This ego death allows the brain to enter a state of hyperconnection and disorganization. Brain scans of people on psilocybin show a chaotic, beautiful mess. A rigid, orderly system of communication suddenly becomes a free-for-all, with brain regions cross-communicating in novel ways. This is believed to be the source of its therapeutic potential. For a person with depression, their brain is stuck in a rigid, ruminating negative loop, a hyperactive DMN. Psilocybin acts as a chemical reboot, temporarily shattering that rigid structure and allowing new, healthier patterns to form in the afterglow period. It's like shaking a snow globe, allowing the flakes to settle in a new and hopefully better configuration. Benzodiazepines. Benzodiazepines, or benzos, are the sledgehammers of anti-anxiety medication. Drugs like Xanax, Valium, and Klonopin are prescribed to treat acute panic, anxiety, and insomnia. They work on the brain's main brake, the GABA system, but their mechanism is far more powerful and dangerous than alcohol's. They are positive allosteric modulators of the GABA-A receptor. This is a fancy way of saying they don't press the brake pedal themselves, they enhance it. When your body's natural GABA molecule lands on a receptor, the benzo, which is sitting in a different allosteric spot on the same receptor, supercharges the effect. It holds the channel open longer, allowing a torrent of negative chloride ions to flood the neuron, making it hyper-inhibited and far less likely to fire. The onset is a wave of profound, cushioned calm. It's not euphoria, it's silence. The noise of anxiety is chemically muted. Your muscles relax, your thoughts slow, and the world feels soft and distant. The danger is twofold. First, tolerance builds insanely fast. The brain, being constantly and artificially sedated, downregulates its own GABA receptors to try and hear any signal at all. This means you need more and more of the drug to get the same quiet. Second, the withdrawal is one of the few that can be fatal. If you stop suddenly, your brain, which is now deficient in brakes and hypersensitive to go signals, can explode into a state of hyperexcitability, seizures, delirium, and death. It's the same reason mixing benzos and alcohol is so deadly. You are engaging two separate, powerful mechanisms, GABA enhancement, on the same brake system, which can slow your brainstem down until it stops your breathing. Amphetamine. Amphetamine is the study drug. It's meth's more functional cousin. Its mechanism is a cleaner, less nuking version of meth's. It primarily works by reversing the dopamine and norepinephrine transporters, DAT and NET, pushing these chemicals, focus and motivation, out into the synapse. It also blocks the reuptake, but it doesn't cause the massive toxic vesicle purge that meth does. The result is not a high, it's a state of hyper-focus. When a person with ADHD takes it, their brain, which is thought to be understimulated in its dopamine pathways, is brought up to a normal baseline of focus. They can finally filter out distractions and complete a task. When a person without ADHD takes it, it pushes them past baseline into a state of chemically induced flow. Studying for 10 hours without looking up, cleaning an entire apartment, writing a 30-page paper. This is the drug's effect. It makes mundane, high-effort tasks feel deeply compelling and rewarding by flooding the brain's motivation circuit. The come down is a direct consequence.
You've been running your brain's focus engine in the red for half a day. The crash is one of physical exhaustion, mental fogginess, and profound anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. Your brain's motivation system is offline, depleted. The curious part? The drug doesn't make you smarter. It just makes you very interested in whatever you're doing, which is a powerful illusion of intelligence. DMT. N-dimethyltryptamine is the spirit molecule. It's one of the most powerful and strangest psychedelics on Earth. It's found in trace amounts in the human brain, and it's the primary psychoactive component of the Amazonian brew ayahuasca. When smoked, its mechanism is a flashbang. It floods the serotonin 2A receptors, like LSD and psilocybin, but with an intensity and speed that is unmatched. The onset is not gradual, it is instantaneous. Users report a carrier wave or a ringing sound as reality shatters. Within 30 seconds, the user's default mode network, the ego, is completely annihilated, and they are blasted into a perceived alternate dimension. This is not a trip in the way LSD is. It is a state of total sensory and ego-based override. Users don't see patterns on the walls. They report being in a different place, interacting with entities or beings made of light and geometry. The entire experience lasts only 5 to 15 minutes, but users report it feels like lifetimes. When taken as ayahuasca, it's combined with the MAOI, a chemical from another plant that stops your stomach from breaking down the DMT, allowing it to be absorbed slowly. This creates a 4 to 6 hour long, gentler, but more emotionally profound and often gut-wrenching journey rather than a 10-minute explosion. Its mechanism is the ultimate reality switch.
GHB. GHB, or gamma-hydroxybutyrate, is one of the most misunderstood club drugs. It's infamous, but its mechanism is truly bizarre. It's actually a neurotransmitter that your brain produces naturally, though in tiny amounts. When taken as a drug, it has a biphasic effect. At low doses, it binds to its own GHB receptors, which causes a release of glutamate, the go signal. This is why the initial onset is often stimulating, euphoric, and pro-social. It feels like a cleaner version of being drunk. But as the dose increases, GHB begins to bind to a different receptor, the GABA B receptor. This is a brake, but a different kind of brake than the benzos and alcohol hit. By slamming this second brake system, GHB induces powerful sedation, memory loss, and muscle relaxation. This is the knife's edge of the drug. The difference between the euphoric social dose and the sedated unconscious dose is tiny. A single capful too much can cause a user to suddenly and completely lose consciousness, falling to the floor. This, combined with its glutamate-blocking amnesiac effects, is why it became a date rape drug. It's not that it's just a sedative, it's a complex chemical switch that can go from party to pass out with zero warning.